If you prefer solitude, you've probably heard the same assumptions again and again. That you're antisocial, that you're avoiding life, you're secretly lonely, that something must be wrong because you don't want what most people want. But psychology offers a different lens. Preferring solitude doesn't automatically mean you dislike people. It often means your mind and nervous system recover differently. It can be a sign of how you regulate emotion, protect attention, and maintain a sense of self. And in a world that praises constant social contact, choosing quiet can look suspicious when it's actually intelligent. Before we go any further, we need one distinction that changes everything. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. Solitude is the state of being alone. It can be chosen, neutral, or nourishing. Loneliness is an emotional experience, disconnection, unmet relational needs, a sense of being unseen or unsupported. You can be alone and feel content. You can be in a crowd and still feel isolated. So when someone says you like being alone, the real question is not, are you lonely? The real question is, what does your alone time do to your mind? Does it restore you, or does it hollow you out? Because solitude can be a sanctuary, but solitude can also become a shield that hardens over time. In this video, we're going to map the psychology of people who prefer solitude through 7 traits patterns that tend to appear in quiet minds. If you recognize yourself in these, you don't need to become louder. You don't need to force yourself into a personality that doesn't fit. You need clarity. So, let's begin. Trait 1. You're sensitive to stimulation, not to humans. Many people misunderstand solitude as a social preference, but for a lot of solitude preferences, it's a stimulation preference. And social environments are saturated with input. Voices, movement, eye contact, facial micro-signals, shifting conversations, background noise, expectations, and the subtle pressure to respond quickly. Even a positive gathering demands constant processing. If your nervous system is more sensitive, that processing has a cost. Not because you're weak, because your brain is running at high resolution. You notice details. You track changes in tone. You register tension in a room that others ignore. You pick up on subtext, emotion, and inconsistency. And when your system has been doing that for hours, it doesn't matter if the people are kind. Your body still needs quiet to come back online. This is why solitude can feel like relief. When the door closes, the world becomes predictable again. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing slows. Your mind stops scanning for the next social cue. That moment isn't failure, it's regulation. If you've ever felt guilty for needing a break from people, consider the possibility that you're not rejecting connection. You're reducing sensory load. Solitude becomes the environment where your nervous system finally gets to rest. Trait 2. You're autonomy-driven. Solitude feels like freedom. Some people feel most alive in shared energy. Others feel most alive when they own their time. If you prefer solitude, autonomy might be a central psychological need for you. Autonomy isn't selfishness. It's the experience of being self-directed, choosing your pace, your attention, your environment, your focus. And solitude provides autonomy in its purest form. No one is watching. No one is pulling you into their rhythm. And no one is shaping your mood with theirs. You can sit in silence without performing comfort. You can be thoughtful without being asked to speak faster. You can exist without being interpreted. This is why solitude doesn't always feel like absence to you. It can feel like agency. And here's what people miss. Autonomy is often the antidote to emotional fatigue. If you spend your days adapting, being polite, being responsive, being responsible, it's being easy to be around. Solitude becomes the only place where you are not negotiating your identity. It's not that you don't care about others. It's that, in solitude, you stop disappearing. Trait 3. Solitude is how you regulate emotion. Some people process emotions through conversation. They speak the feeling out loud until it becomes manageable. But solitude preferers often process emotion through privacy. They don't always know what they feel in real time, especially in social settings where attention is split. When you're around people, you're tracking them. You're timing your responses. You're keeping your expressions socially acceptable. And sometimes that layer of monitoring prevents emotional truth from surfacing. But when you're alone, emotional signals become clearer. You can finally sense what hurt you, what you swallowed, tolerated, and what you pretended didn't matter. That solitude gives emotions room to rise without interruption. That doesn't mean solitude is always pleasant. Sometimes it's quiet and calming. Sometimes it's confronting. But even when it's heavy, it can be productive, because it's honest. This is one reason many people seek quiet walks, private rooms, or device-free time. They aren't escaping life, they're digesting it. And if you're someone who feels more stable after alone time, hey, it may be because solitude helps your emotional system downshift from high alert states into calmer ones. It's not isolation, it's self-regulation. Trait 4. You prefer depth over social volume. A common stereotype is that solitude prefers don't like relationships. But the truth is often the opposite. Many people who choose solitude aren't low connection people. They are high standards connection people. They want authenticity, meaning, and they want conversations that have weight. What drains them is not the presence of people. What drains them is shallow interaction that demands performance. Small talk can feel like running on a treadmill. Motion without arrival. Forced cheerfulness can feel like emotional labor. Social spaces where you can't be quiet without being judged can feel like a subtle punishment. So you choose solitude not because you're incapable of connection, but because you refuse to trade your energy for something that doesn't feed your mind. And this is also why solitude preferers often thrive with a small circle. Not because they can't make friends, but because they value quality over quantity. They'd rather have one relationship where they can be fully themselves than a dozen relationships where they have to shrink. And when they do connect, they tend to listen deeply. They remember. They notice patterns. They sense what people mean, not just what they say. That depth is a gift. Yes, but it also means superficial spaces can feel loud in a way that isn't about sound. Trait 5. Your best thinking happens when the social layer disappears. There's a specific kind of focus that solitude prefers, recognize instantly. When you're alone, your mind becomes yours again. You're not reading faces, anticipating reactions, and you're not managing how you appear. Your attention stops splitting itself into 10 directions. And with that, a different mode turns on. For many solitude preferers, quiet isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Quiet isn't emptiness, it's a workspace, a mental laboratory. It's where you enter flow, not because you're motivated by isolation, but because your brain finally has a clear channel. This is why some people do their best writing alone, their best learning alone, their best decision-making alone. This solitude is the condition where cognitive resources stop being spent on social monitoring and start being spent on deep work. So, when someone says, "You're always alone," you might hear it as criticism, but your mind might be using solitude as a tool for clarity, for mastery, for restoration. Trait 6. You have a strong inner world, and you know how to live inside it. This trait is often invisible from the outside. People see quiet and assume nothing is happening. But many solitude preferers have rich inner lives. They reflect, they integrate, they connect experiences to meaning. They don't just move through days, they interpret them. And that changes the experience of being alone. If your inner world is active, solitude can feel full. Not crowded, full. It can feel like you're in conversation with your own mind. You might replay moments, not to torture yourself, but to understand them. You might examine your reactions, not out of insecurity, out of insight seeking. This kind of inner work can be a sign of maturity, because many people avoid solitude for one reason. Silence makes them face what they've been outrunning. When there's no noise, emotions surface. When there's no distraction, questions appear. Solitude can be uncomfortable if your inner world feels unsafe. But if you prefer solitude, you may have built a relationship with your inner life that others haven't. That doesn't mean it's always easy. There's a shadow side. Solitude can become rumination if the inner voice becomes harsh. So, here's a useful check. After solitude, do you feel clearer and steadier? Or do you feel trapped in repetitive self-criticism? Solitude amplifies what's inside. If what's inside is curious, solitude heals. If what's inside is cruel, solitude can wound. Trait 7. Your beliefs about being alone shape your emotional outcome. Two people can spend the same amount of time alone and walk away with opposite feelings. One feels restored, the other feels rejected. This difference often comes down to one invisible factor: meaning. If you were taught that being alone is embarrassing, your body may interpret solitude as evidence of failure. If you learned that being alone is restful, your body may interpret solitude as care. Beliefs act like a lens, and that lens changes everything. If the lens says, being alone means I'm unwanted, solitude can trigger shame. If the lens says, being alone is how I recover, solitude can trigger relief. The mind doesn't react to facts, it reacts to interpretation. This is why loneliness can be driven not just by social reality, but by what you believe solitude says about you. So, part of the psychology of preferring solitude is learning to separate the state from the story. Being alone doesn't automatically mean you're unloved. It can simply mean you're self-regulating. Now, we have to talk about something important, because I don't want this video to romanticize disappearing. Solitude becomes dangerous when it stops being a choice. Healthy solitude usually looks like this. You choose it, it restores you, and you can still connect when you want to. You haven't lost the ability to bond. You haven't lost your capacity for pleasure. You simply need quiet to function well. But painful isolation looks different. It feels like a shrinking life. It feels like you're avoiding not just noise, but vulnerability. It feels like you can't tolerate closeness, or you expect rejection before it happens. Sometimes people confuse that with, I just prefer solitude. And sometimes it's true, they do prefer solitude. But other times, and solitude is covering something heavier, exhaustion, numbness, fear, or a long history of not feeling safe with people. There's also a clinical concept discussed in psychology called social anhedonia, reduced pleasure from social interaction. That isn't the same as introversion. That isn't simply, I need alone time. It's more like, connection no longer feels rewarding. This is not a label to throw at yourself. It's a reminder that if solitude is paired with persistent numbness and loss of joy, it may be worth seeking support rather than assuming it's just personality. Because the goal isn't to force yourself into crowds. The goal is to build a life where solitude is a resource, not a cage. So, how do you make solitude healthy? You make it intentional. You use it as restoration, not disappearance. Here are 3 ways solitude prefers can stay balanced without betraying themselves. First, give solitude a purpose. Not every alone moment has to be productive, but it helps to know what you're using it for, to downshift, to think clearly, to process emotion, to create, to rest without being watched. When solitude has purpose, it stops feeling like drifting. Second, keep one honest connection alive. Solitude works best when it's chosen, not when it's your only option. Many solitude preferers don't need a large circle, but they do benefit from at least one relationship where they can be unmasked. Someone who doesn't punish silence, someone who doesn't take quiet personally, someone who understands that space can be love. Third, challenge the shame story. If you carry the belief that solitude is pathetic, you'll never fully enjoy it. You'll always feel like you're doing something wrong. So, replace the narrative, not with denial, with accuracy. Solitude can be a skill, a boundary, a healing space. It can be where your mind returns to itself. And when the story changes, the body changes. Because you stop treating your needs like a flaw, you start treating them like information. Now, let's bring everything together. If you prefer solitude, you might have a sensitive nervous system that tires from stimulation, a strong need for autonomy, time that belongs to you, an emotion regulation style that works best in private, a preference for depth over social volume, a focus mode that activates when the social layer disappears, a rich inner world that makes quiet feel meaningful, and beliefs that shape whether alone time feels safe or shameful. That isn't a disorder. That's a psychological profile, and it deserves respect. Because the world often tries to train you out of your nature. It tells you to be louder, more available, more visible, more social. Like constant access is the same thing as connection. But real connection has never been about quantity. It's about authenticity, safety, and presence. You don't need to become a different person. You need to become a person who understands their own system. When you understand it, you stop treating your needs like a flaw, and you start treating them like information. So if solitude is where you breathe again, protect it. If solitude is where you create again, honor it. If solitude is where you hear your own thoughts after a noisy day, value it. Make space for quiet the same way you'd make space for sleep, not as a reward, but as maintenance. And don't let anyone shame you for having boundaries. Wanting space doesn't mean you don't care. It often means you care enough to show up as your real self instead of a drained version of you. Just make sure solitude remains a choice, a sanctuary, a tool, not a prison built from fear. If your alone time leaves you clearer, calmer, and more grounded, that's healthy solitude. If it leaves you numb, stuck, or constantly spiraling, that's a signal to add support. More rest, more structure, or one safe person you can be unmasked with. If this video made you feel seen, write in the comments which trait matched you most, 1 through 7. And if you want more psychology that makes room for quiet minds, subscribe, because your silence isn't emptiness. Sometimes silence is strength.